Excellent. If you thought this was pretty wild, I'm doing something on Halloween night. It sort of takes sound to the extreme. So I have a poster over there for it. It's called the Black Class. I'm doing it on Halloween night. Last year I did it in Salem, Massachusetts on Halloween. I'm not sure they recovered, so that's why I'm not going back. Actually, it was kind of crazy up there. It's been a while since I've been up in that neck of the woods on Halloween. I did this program. What it is, it's a blindfolded program. It's a lay-down blindfold program. And I don't think I've ever used any of these instruments right here. I use a collection of very rare indigenous instruments that are used in ceremony and rituals and a lot of places that we can't pronounce. I sort of have this wild musical instrument collection. But what it's about creating an exercise for your mind. Because you can't see what's going on, that changes the effect. That is known as acousmatic theory. Acousmatic theory is that if you can't see where the sound is coming from, it changes how you're trying to figure out what the heck is going on, right? And then you couple that with instruments you may not have ever even heard of or heard the sound of, right? And it's being done live, pretty much right in your face. It's wild. I'm doing that up at a private yoga studio near Lake Nakamixon. Yes,
It says costumes optional, please.
Yeah.
I've been to it and it's awesome, trust me. If you like tonight, go. It'll totally knock your socks off.
It's a little crazy.
Before you all come, you have to go through a registration to make sure we can get
Yes.
you. It's a limited.
Yeah, because we lay out, we take up a lot of room, so we have to keep track of the numbers to make sure that everybody can to spread out. So you bring a mat, you bring something comfortable, you bring a blanket, a pillow, and a blindfold or a mindfold or an eye covering of some sort, and then you sort of close up, and then we sort of do this sound collage, which is meant to stretch your imagination, to make you see your mind a little bit more clearly. I mean, that's why they do dark retreats in monasteries. So you get a better look at what's going on there. But you exercise the body, so why not exercise the mind? So that's what that is about. I only hold it once a year. I don't like to wear this one out. So this will be the only time I do it in this area this year. It's on Halloween night. And it's actually the last one I'm doing this year because I've done it in sort of the other pockets of the country that I do this black class in. Okay. I once did it at Duke University, but the African American community got upset with me and I had to change it to the dark class. Because I thought I was up to something with African American studies. I said it doesn't have anything to do with even the continent. But anyway, that was about the only time anybody said, what the heck is going on with that black class? So anyway, Chaz, and I think Colleen, you've been in on it, right?
Pretty cool.
Chris.
Extra time to come home.
Karen, yeah. It's kind of a wonderful sound event. So you can see the information about on my website. You can just take one of my business cards over there. My website's on there at nineways.org and go to the events page and you'll sort of see what's going on. And there's some room in that, I believe, still. And then in December, on the solstice, I know these are all weeknights, but that never seems to matter to me. I'm gathering up the Secret Gong Orchestra for a major blowout at the end of the year. I'm not sure how many I'm going to bring in. We've had as many as 15 gong players with collections of gongs. And we've broken the sound barrier. But I'm probably only going to do it with a couple. The bigger the gong, the softer you can play it. So people see giant gongs rolling across the floor, figure that their heads are going to explode. It's not what happens. Little gongs you have to beat on to get a sound out. Big gongs, you can literally breathe on them and make them sound. Okay, I teach an advanced program in gongs. I just wrapped it up at the beginning of this month. Had people in from all over the country for it. And people were amazed at how quiet and how great gongs sound when you're barely playing. So every now and then I assemble the Secret Gong Orchestra and we do a gong presentation that will blow your mind. So if you're interested in something like that, that's going to be on December 21st. That sort of wraps up my programs for the year around here. If you want to know what I do, I put out a newsletter. You just have to send me your email and I'll let you know what the heck is going on. I don't really do anything in print anymore. Trees are too valuable to be making paper out of them. So I do everything on the internet and through my newsletter. And that's how people sort of know what's going on. I'm really good at flying underneath the radar. People will tell you that I'm one of the busiest guys around. But nobody ever knows where I am. It's because I keep lists, and when you're on the list, then you know. That's how it sort of works. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. All right? A lot of times I limit how many people can come into my programs only because I don't necessarily like to have a room full of people. I'd rather have 10 really serious people than 30 goofballs. That's pretty much how I work. My programs are never vacations. My programs get pretty tough sometimes, at least on the academic learning side of things. So let's turn back to these instruments right here. The first instrument that I started out with is an instrument that is 18,000 years old. This one is not 18,000 years old. But this one is fairly old. It's about 400 years old. This one that I have right here. It is the ritual upturned flat bell of the bone pub, the ha-ha, the hell-bed, spirit beings of the Himalayan plateau up near the Gobi Desert. This is used for rituals with mountain spirits, rituals with water spirits. It's used by the monastic community in what we call the Yongdrung bone tradition. That means everlasting or eternal. Yongdrung. And Buddhism is based on this tradition. Everybody thinks Buddhism started with the Buddha. Only the spirituality that we call Buddhism did. But the underlying philosophy of the compassionate teachings of Sutra and Tantra and Dzogchen started in this tradition. It's all the same. I've studied Buddhism for nearly 40 years. I've studied this other tradition for over 20. Okay? I've done all the preliminary foundational practices, or what we call the preliminaries, with this tradition. Same as like a monk in a monastery. I've done these same ones. And what I can see, after having studied with 3 or 4 major Buddhist teachers, including having studied with the Dalai Lama, there's no difference between this tradition and Buddhism. There's none. There's only there's two, just a couple major differences. In Buddhism, everything goes clockwise. Okay? Everything goes clockwise. In the bone tradition, everything goes counterclockwise, just like the spin of the universe. The universe spins in a counterclockwise direction. If you were to get way up there and look down at the universe, you would see that it's slowly turning counterclockwise. And that's what they say. They say everything goes counterclockwise. Okay? And then the other thing is they have a very unique meditational practice called Dzogchen, which is only one instruction, which is called, where is your mind? Now, that's a tough question. Easy to say, but to do it, it's quite difficult. So they do these, what we call nature of mind meditation practices, which can be quite difficult for some people. But that's the only one that they have. Their Buddha is the third. They recognize the Buddha that we've all heard of as the fifth. This is their major sound tool. It's always upside down. It is never down. It's always up. That's why we call it the upturned flat bell. It's made out of a consecrated alloy, and there's one text in a monastery that talks about this instrument. It was already existing at the time of their third Buddha in 16,032 BC or something like that. Because he talks about it and he tells his followers to pick it up. My root lamas told me it was 30,000 years old. Now these are some kind of outlandish figures. 30,000, 16,000 years ago. Believe me, this place is old. Earth is an old place. 16,000 BC is not that long ago. Just the other day, I was looking at something that had a picture of a skull, human skull, found in North America that they say was 30,000 years old. You know, when you don't have CNN running all the time, I guess you lose track of time. So 16,000 is not that old. It's quite possible where the Vedic tradition started. In the Vedas, in the Rig, it starts out by talking about horses and chariots. Horses are not native to India. They did not have chariots in India. Chariots and horses came into India from somewhere else. Where they think they came from is known as the Black Sand Desert out in the middle of Central Asia. This is where this instrument came from. It is, the bone tradition is a matriarchal tradition. All of their major deities are women. Every one. Their Buddha is male. And then the character named Shenlar Wokar, who instructed him before he was reincarnated to the earth plane, is a male. But he was only relaying information from what they basically, we would call their divine mother, which they call the loving mother. So the major deity is this person known as the loving mother. And then she has two wrathful aspects, which one, Kali, is based on, or Durga is based on. Okay? But these versions are much, much, much older, by thousands and thousands of years over the Vedic ones. So we have this loving mother of the universe, and then we have these two wrathful deities that make sure that everybody's paying attention to her. That's pretty much it. And this instrument is her breast. Okay? That's what this is. And when you play it, you are nourishing all sentient beings like a mother would be breastfeeding her baby. So that's the outside meaning of this instrument. is that you are delivering mother's milk to all those who need it. Okay? Then we have lots of inner and we have lots of secret things that go on with this instrument. But the bone poe will say that this is the sound of peace. That's why when you go out in the middle of the woods and you ring this, animals walk up to you. And I talked to him about that. I said, I find that when I play this out in the middle of nowhere, I got more wildlife coming to me and I can't figure it out because I think I'd be scaring them all away. And they go, because in the animal realm, this is like celestial music to them. They hear differently. Right? So they say when an animal hears it, they recognize that wherever this sound is, there's peace right there. They have nothing to fear where that sound is coming from. And, I mean, I've had raptors land on the tree branches above me. I've had deer walk right up. I've had coyotes come in North New Mexico. Of course, you have to have the right intention. Well, that has a lot to do with it. But that's what this instrument is. It's only 3 parts. It's a knocker, right? It's got this little wheel in the middle of it, which is known as the wheel of joy. Right? And then there's the cymbal itself, which is known as the shang. And this small one is known as a chin. And then there's bigger ones that are known as chungs, and I was going to bring one, but I thought, maybe one's enough tonight. I have them all different sizes. Some people will argue that this is a chung and the other bigger ones are chins. Possible. I just know what my teacher told me. He said that you have a chin and that is a chung. I get it. It wouldn't be the first time that there's a contradiction out there. I mean, we get them all the time. The only way you know what it means to you is if you put it to the test. Direct experience, not someone telling you about it, not rumor, innuendo, Google, none of that. You put your face to the wheel and you get the direct experience and then you know. Okay, so that is the bone poe shang. 3-piece instrument. It's got turquoise and coral on the string. Has to do with the 3 channels of the body. The rings have meanings. There's little decorations around here. They all have sort of little meanings, but this is what this is. The instrument that casts thoughts. Needs to be in the right hands. What do you think? The instrument that casts thoughts. That's what the spirit being is called. It's used in rain-making rituals. It's used for hypnotizing people. It's used for all kinds of things. Then the next instrument that I played is the drill boom, or ganta, or vajra bell. In Japan, they call them Congo bells. In China, they call them, I think I'm forgetting that one right now. But anyway, it's a mandala. It's a 3-dimensional mandala. That's what it is. Okay? So, when you look at this, you're looking down the center of the mandala, right? And then here's the mandala back here, the circular mandala. So it's a 3-dimensional representation of a mandala. Okay? It means or symbolizes wisdom. But not just any kind of wisdom. The going beyond wisdom. So sometimes they call them the bells of wisdom. That's just a superficial explanation. This is the going beyond wisdom bell, or what we call prajna paramita, which sometimes that's the little face that's on it. Okay? Some schools say it's Tara, Some schools say it's the Buddha. I say it's Krishna Paramita. That's how the Nyingma look at it. The oldest of the northern schools of Buddhism. And we have a dorje or vajra handle on it, which is male. Thunderbolt. Lightning awareness attached to the bell, which is feminine and means wisdom. So when we bring wisdom and method together, we have the perfect duality in tantric circles. The only way that leads toward the direct path to compassion. All right. The Dalai Lama says that you can't understand compassion unless you have patience. So first you have to have patience, and you have to have compassion, and then you get wisdom. That's how it sort of works. And then the bell has many definite descriptions. There's all this stuff that's all over the bell, right, when you see it. It all has esoteric meaning. The vajra with the spokes that represents the Makara, which was created by Shiva, sitting on the crown of Prajna Paramita. Prajna Paramita's head comes down and sits on a moon disk. The moon disk sits on this little stem. This is actually my favorite little piece of symbolism on the bell, this little piece right here, which is the vase that holds the nectar of accomplishment. That's a good one, right? So now we have the moon disk. She's sitting on the moon disk with a little ring of pearls. Then we got the vase that holds the nectar of accomplishment. And then we have a lotus flower going around the top. And then there's little Sanskrit letters. It's not Om Mani Padme Hum. It's actually the bija sounds for the 5 Dhyana Buddhas, or what we're going to call the 5 Buddha families. Then there's a ring of dorjes that goes along the top. That's a protection ring. All mandalas have inner and outer protection rings made up of dorjes. It's here at the top. And then underneath of it, we have chipu, or zipak, which is this kind of like lion-looking thing with things hanging out of its mouth. And those are actually jewels. And jewels hang out of the mouth of chipu. And then there's another ring of dorjes, and then you have the outer rim. Then there's the hollow of the bell. I've removed my knocker because sometimes it gets in the way. I like the Zen cone, it's the silence of the ringing bell. Okay. I've had all kinds of people accuse me of all kinds of blasphemy because I don't have the knocker inside of it. I tell them that they have too much mind. And then there's like usually a lotus flower that's inside of here, and that sort of tells you, some people will say that tells you what chakra that this bell goes to. But they've never talked to people who made them. People who made them, that's their signature. Okay? That's how the different families of the bell makers know these bells. Okay? Some have stars in them. Some people say, well, that represents the heart chakra. I said, yes, star represents the heart chakra. I've never heard a family that makes them say that to me. But, you know, I mean, it works. I got lots of bells with 5-pointed stars in the bottom. I got quite a collection of these. And I'm simply just rubbing it. I like to take the knocker out so that way I can play it sideways. I can point it at the people. And then you can change the sound by letting the sound go into your mouth. Okay? Any questions about the charm or the bell, the 2 bells that I played? Everybody's with me? Okay, excellent. Yes?
Can you play any bell like that?
Any of these kind, yeah. Yeah, any one will work. I like to use cherry on these. That's what this is, cherry. Aspen works well too, but cherry's sort of, I got this big old chunk of cherry here I've been playing. I play even little tiny ones with. It's speed and pressure.
Does the
Toronto wood. This is just a gift from Frank Perry over in England. A little scratchy. But for the most part, it's masked by the sound.
It also has no wear on it.
They traditionally play them with ivory wands in the monastery. They do that. You know, normally they've got this in the left hand, the feminine hand, and the vajra or dorje in the right hand. And when they're doing their mudras with the ritual piece of bell and dorje, they're ringing. And they're ringing to we'll say the rhythm cadence of the mantra that they're doing. Or in a ceremony, in tantric ceremony, they're reading and they're not necessarily rocking the bell. Okay? And then all of a sudden, you know, when you're seeing this for the first time, you know, everything's quiet, you just hear them, you know, chanting. And then all of a sudden, the bells all go off. It's like, oh my God. It was like an alarm clock in the morning. It was like, and I'm thinking, no, who cued that? You know, I'm thinking, did somebody like drop a flag or something? I mean, all of a sudden, like 100 monks, 100 bells all start ringing. So I asked them about that, and they said, oh no, that's when the Buddha entered the ritual. That we signaled, that we knew he was there. I went, oh cool. Now I get it. Up until then, I just thought, you know, I mean, where did that come from? But in the tantric rituals, it's all quiet, and the bells are still. And then all of a sudden, they all start ringing. And it's when they feel that we'll say that the spirit of the Buddha or the deity that they're working with, or let's just call it now, the energy that they're working with. Because that's how they see it. There's an energy that they're pulling in. Okay? It could be male and peaceful. It could be female and wrathful. Okay? I mean, you see these terrifying figurines in their art. That's not to scare you, that's to scare ignorance. That's what that's about. You know, all the things that you don't like about yourself, you know, the 5 poisons, jealousy, right, hatred, anger, all these kind of things. Well, how are you going to get rid of it if you don't have something bigger and better than to scare it away? Right? So you see these like ferocious things in a wall of fire and a terrifying face and skulls are around their neck and dead carcasses at their feet and everything else. That's all ignorance. That's all the aspects of ignorance and the 5 poisons that they have slayed compassionately on your behalf. It's a transformation. It's not about that they killed these things, right? They transformed that energy compassionately into a higher vibration, and that's the shell that's left. Just like when we die, we will leave our set of clothes behind. It's the same thing, okay? Good? Excellent. Okay, so that was the bells. And then the bowls. Well, I've been around these buggers for quite a long time. I think they follow me now. This is actually a bowl for the first family in Malay. It's what we call the first family. It's one of their collection. A bowl like this with this round shape, and just like these 2 right here. I'll put you guys on this side. These are called jambatis. These are jambati bowls, big jambati bowls, deep, like gongs, right? And actually, that's what these are. These are gongs. They are a resting gong. Gongs either hang or they rest. They have these in China called keens. And they have them in Japan called rins. And they're made in Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Burma, Vietnam, the Philippines, China, Japan. stands down through across the Himalayas of India. Sometimes you see things like this in northern Burma. That was where some of the oldest, earliest copper mines were found in Asia. It was right off the tip of Burma. What used to be called the Jang Kingdom. And before that, it was called the Kingdom of Women. That's where the Amazon stuff originated from, actually. Not from South America. Land of women. The Scythians were burning their way across Asia. It was one of my favorite little groups, the Scythians. They made Genghis Khan look like the Peace Corps. Yeah, the Scythians were quite the battle group. Why I appreciated it is because they had all these strange instruments that they used to play before they charged the enemy. And they always played with charged in the morning with the sun at their back. Okay? Or no, the sun in their face. And they wore gold armor and gold-plated their horses. So when the sun hit them, they were like a blinding headlight. And they would play these strange musical instruments to disrupt the thoughts of their enemy. And then they would charge right on in. And this is where Genghis Khan got the idea that when you invade somebody, you kill them and their pets. You don't leave anything left. That's where he got this from. And that's what they did, and until they got to the land of women. And they showed up one day for a battle, and it was the first stalemate they ever fought. This is how the legend goes. They got there, and somebody put them to a draw the first day. They weren't used to this. So the commander of the Scythians said, go out there and find one of those dead soldiers from the other side and drag them in here. I want to see who in the heck we're fighting. And when they brought the body in, it was a woman. And he couldn't believe it. He said, go collect me some more bodies. And every one of them was a woman. And he said, I can't believe it. We're fighting an army of women. We've terrorized and destroyed all of Asia, and now we're in this neck of the woods and we're fighting women and we can't see what's going on here. So they decided to make a truce, as the story goes. He sent over an entourage and he said, look, you fought a good fight. And I think what we should really do is send over 50 of your best female warriors, and we'll breed them with our group. And we'll create some super warrior race on the Asian continent. And the reply was, if you think we're cooking and taking care of your house, you're crazy. If you go into battle, we go into battle with you. And supposedly they did. 50 Scythians and 50 of the warriors from the Kingdom of Women supposedly got together. There's a whole museum in Russia devoted to them. When their general or field commander died, he was buried with all his captains. They all committed suicide and were buried alongside of him. And when they find these Scythian graves, he's on his gold horse, buried in the ground, totally standing, and all around him are all his officers. That's how they always find these graves. They're one in the middle, and the whole group of officers around them. Everything is gold. So anyway, we mistakenly call these Tibetan. And it's only because the first people that brought these to the West, that's what they thought they were. When I heard that first recording in the early 1970s, it greatly affected me. And I'm still wearing it off. I went, somebody knew I had a very unusual musical instrument collection as a young and I had this interest in what people were playing and singing about in other parts of the world. Didn't much listen to the radio here. So I amassed a crazy musical listening collection from all those old Smithsonian Folkways recordings of like music from the rainforest and these kind of things that there used to be out there. They send these guys into the field and they recorded everything from chimpanzees talking at night to people beating drums around the fire. And I collected all that stuff. And so this friend of mine knew that I had this collection, and he sent me a recording of these. And I was like just totally taken by him, which I think many of you have also had this experience, and when you hear them, you're taken by them too. And I basically said, well, where did these things come from? And he says, well, I think you got them in Tibet. I said, they couldn't have gotten them in Tibet because nobody can get into Tibet right now. He says, well, they were in Nepal. And I said, well, okay, well then, are they just sitting there in Nepal or what? He says, I guess so, because they found them. So off I went, and I couldn't find one of them. I couldn't find one. Months went by. I mean, I almost died on this trip. Finally found myself one and a couple of sets of the cymbals, which I'm going to go to next, and some of the bells. And I've been sort of off and running ever since. But the internet's full of stuff that doesn't make sense about these. I teach a serious class on these. People come in from all over the world here in Bucks County to study these. But with me, they're really good for sound therapy. They really are. There's a lot of properties that go on. I'm not going to go into it too much, but there's things that happen magnetically with these. There's things that happen where they change the electrons in the air. The quartz crystal bowls don't do this, unfortunately, because I get that question all the time. What's the difference? Well, it's metal and frozen water, basically, right? Crystals. I like crystals the way they are. I don't think we need to crush them down and make them into anything else, but I have crystal bowls. But I think that the metal ones do things that the crystal ones can't. Scientifically and through physics, that's what supports my argument that those things exist here. They come in all different sizes. I said these were John bodies. These are called Tado bodies. We just call these cups, Tado cups, small Tado cups. Got one here that's got a little knob in the bottom. That's a Shiva Lingam bowl. Came out of northern India to begin with. This bowl here is kind of unusual. It's got a great little sound to it. It's got an unusual shape. Thick wall, thin bottom, curves in. You see them on the internet being sold as what they call Mani bowls, but that isn't really what they're called. They're known as beggar bowls, actually, because when you see the pictures of the Buddha has a bowl in his hands, you'll see that the bowl curves in. Right? You see a picture of the Buddha, he's holding a bowl, the bowl goes in, right? These are the types of bowls that the Buddha and his arhats, or his followers, begged for when they were in India. They used these bowls. And there's a lot of great stories about this bowl. Some people say the Buddha was in a meditation. I mean, this story is told 100 different ways in the Himalayas. The Buddha was meditating. The villagers thought he was dying. So they sent in a child to tap the bowl. So, and he did. He went in and tapped the bowl. And the Buddha came out of his meditation. The Buddha came out of the cave, and everybody was rejoicing the Buddha hadn't died on their watch at the village. So everybody was happy. So that's what that bowl is right there. And then the last thing I played, and I didn't play very much, because not too many people know how these are used traditionally. We call them tingshas. These are basically matched symbols, hand symbols. Ting sha means the sound of metal, touching. That's what it means. The sound of metal that makes when it touches. That's what ting sha means. But the oldest name for these is Nagani bell, or Nagani symbol. Okay, that's the oldest of these. The Buddhists and the Hindus adopted these from a much earlier group. And traditionally, we would not play these at this time of the year. Taboo. Don't play these. But of course, nobody knows these, so Probably right now there's thousands of people around the world leading meditations, ringing these things. But when you don't know, it's okay. Right? When you don't know, it's all right. I mean, you don't know better. Okay? But when you do know better, and then you break the rules, well, that's a different story. But anyway, these are what the shamans and really old traditions did to contact what we would call the earth energy or earth spirits. The sound is a penetrating sound that goes into their realm and they hear it. And then you summon them with these. They're played certain ways as a call to, we'll say, the energy that lives in the earth, the energy that lives in a stream, or a lake, or an ocean, or a mountain, or a big rock, or whatever, okay? And then to call it out, okay, and to work with it, you would ring these, okay? And they're not done like this, okay? I mean, when you don't know, you play them like this. You pinch them behind, and then they're held at right angles, one over the other. And you can go up, you can go down, or you can go down, up, down, right? But generally speaking, you do them in groups of 3, okay? And then what you're doing is then you are doing, you're calling them. Naga Utahong, Naga Racha Shri, Muddersang Wero, Kayi Kayi. And you're calling forth the Naga, or earth energy. Okay? Hence the name Nagana Bell. It is the symbol or the voice to call the Naga. Okay? Now, this is just a side footnote. In their medical books, okay, their medicine books, what they call the medicine side, okay, cancer is a Naga illness. It comes from the Naga. So, you don't want to piss these guys off. That's what I say. Right? You don't want to do that. You don't want to get these guys on the wrong side. The most horrible diseases is in the Naga section of their medical books. And they say the reason we get these diseases is because we are not in tune with our natural surroundings. That we have done something to the earth. The first thing a Lama will say when he diagnoses you early with an illness like this is he asks you if you have harmed a tree. Have you cut a tree? Have you done something to water? That's the first question. I've seen this asked hundreds of times. When they do a diagnosis, somebody's got a serious illness, and they see that it's in the Naga. Because if they did cut a tree, they're going to say, well, we're going to go out there, and we're going to do a ritual with that tree, and then you're going to plant trees until you get better. That's the only remedy you need. You don't need medicine. What you need to do is you need to fix what you broke. Okay? So, in September, roughly, when the equinox comes, they put these to bed. Because they say the Naga goes to sleep. Nagas sleep just like we sleep. Because when the weather gets cold, there isn't much for them to do. But when spring comes, we want them well rested. Because we want them to help us plant our fields and to start the cycle of regeneration over again. So the Nagas start working full-time 24/7 for us. So they sleep, and then on the equinox they wake up. And on the equinox in the spring, they do a Naga ritual and they ring these things all day long. Getting them all awake saying, we're here to work with you, we're going to fix things, we're going to get things right. So, that's sort of a concludes my presentation for the evening. Is there any questions on any of these instruments? Yes, Jess?
The ting shot? Is
Yeah.
that one? You mentioned that there was a couple different ways to play that.
Right.
Does that coincide with something?
Well, basically, you would generally do them outdoors, and the amount of ringing, starts with 3, goes to 4, goes to 5, goes to 6. It can keep going. Okay.
But how about the direction you were talking about?
Not the direction.
That
It just doesn't,
okay.
just back and forth. All back and forth does is tests your aim. All right. How good am I at banging them together like this? But when you hold them like this and you just click, 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 I mean, you're not. I've seen so many people play these and it's like bang. They hit everything but the edge. But there's pictures on the internet that shows them like this. I mean, we play with a lot of stuff that we don't like, that we don't necessarily know too much about. These include, you go into a Tibetan shop and they got like baskets of these next to the cash register for $20. I mean, they just want to sell you some of these things. And most of them don't know anything about that. Yeah.
When they're crafted,
Yeah.
originally,
Yeah.
they're originally crafted.
Yeah.
Is there a ritual blessing?
Generally not.
No.
Not really with any of these. And to tell you the reason, the main reason is that these are metallurgy families that make these. And when the monastery needs something, normally somebody from that metallurgy family is a monk in the monastery. So they just sort of subcontract the work out right to that family. And like the ting shots and the bells, the finest ones came from Devardhan, India. And there's a couple places in the Himalayas. The shangs are also made in Devardhan, but they're also made in Ladakh. Okay, and then the bowls are sort of made, there's over 125 factories making single bowls in Kathmandu. Okay, and like 300 years ago, there was probably just as many. Okay, the Mala period, like 17th century, 16th century, there was probably 300 factories making single bowls in the bowl then. That was sort of the height of it. Yes, yes.
I was talking to someone while you were activating all the
Yeah.
sound earlier. I kind of went away, and then all of a sudden I had a hot flash.
Yeah.
And I came back.
Yeah.
And it took time for me to just
Yeah.
float away again.
Yeah.
And someone else had that experience. Is that common, or?
Well, yeah, you can have all different experiences. Basically, what's happening on a physiological level with sound is that it's a stimulant to the parasympathetic nervous system. And you can have different kinds of reactions with the parasympathetic nervous system. If your parasympathetic nervous system has got, we'll say, some clogged areas, then things need to push energy through the parasympathetic nervous system. Generally speaking, when people say that they have some difficulty, my first question is how do you sleep, and then how are you digesting your food? Because that's the rest and digest is the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is what I call a hit and run, or fight or flight. I like the term hit and run myself. Sometimes I get tongue-tied on fight or flight. I like hit and run better. When we're good and we're getting our rest and things are right, we're going to say the parasympathetic nervous system is functioning normally. We're not stressed out. We don't have anxiety. These kind of things. A lot of times what happens is these instruments can, we'll say, elicit certain effects, both physically with the parasympathetic nervous system, as well as on a neurological level of the way you're hearing things, okay? How do we hear? Right? I'm going to say with your four ways. This is the one, right? Our ears, right? But we also hear with our skin, our bones, and our mind, and that's what binaural beat is, right? Beat frequency, when you have two sounds, right? Just a little bit off, going to the left and the right. And then the brain hears a third sound that was never produced. That's called beat frequency, binaural beat. That's what holly sync, hemi sync is all about, right? I mean, the brain creates the sound. That sound isn't there. The brain creates it. It's totally created by the mind. So I'm sort of throwing that one in there. You know, we hear four ways. We got the one where the brain hears the sound. We got the one where the brain makes it up. And then we hear through our skin and we hear through our bones. And how do you know you hear through your bones? When you heard yourself recorded for the first time on a tape recording, did you not say, that doesn't sound like me? Why? Because when we talk, we hear our voice through bone induction. Okay? Our voice is going through our bones and we're picking it up. So, that's why when we hear a recording of our voice, we say that doesn't sound like me. Well, because you're not hearing it with your bones now. You're only hearing it with your ears. Yes?
Do you have any suggestions for just beginning to incorporate the sounds into like one stage practice?
You know, if you have a practice, and for example, if you were saying you were praying, which is like another form of doing mantras, it's just our version of it here in the West. You could do it with sound as a support to give it energy, we'll say, okay? I mean, a lot of times these instruments are solely used to touch in a rhythm with the mantra that they're doing in the countries that they're coming with, okay? But generally speaking, when the Buddha once said, okay, to Avalokitesvara, when he was doing a teaching in the jungles of India, he said, how did you get penetration? And what he meant by that is how did you penetrate to a level where you came to a new awareness? And Avalokitesvara said, I was listening to the soundless sound. Right, I was listening to the soundless sound. Okay, so a lot of times these instruments are very good for following sound into silence, or sound into silence, where you follow it in with your practice. You follow it in, and then when you get in there deep, that's when I say that you experience it like you were drinking nectar.
Would you ever have just one bowl
Absolutely.
or one bell?
One bell, one bowl. You know, I always say that if you had the ability, you could do the work with Tupperware. Right? You could do it. You could do it with Tupperware. If you had the ability, you could do it with a plastic bowl. But, you know, it's like my old friend, the late Thea Sarasu said, was that these are tools that teach us. He called them tools that teach, is the phrase that he used for these instruments. Because he said, until we're able to make a Tupperware bowl, do a transformation for people, we need to work with these until we get that ability. And I think there was a certain truth right there. You know, it goes to an old Tibetan saying, if there is veneration, even a dog's tooth emits light. We good?